here. And you, Master Wayne, help him.
Would you hand me my shoes and stockings, please? Thanks.
You know, you're looking much...
Welcome back to Hollywood Secrets. The 1960s were a golden era for horror films, with directors pushing the boundaries of what was terrifying on screen. From psychological thrillers to supernatural scares, this decade produced some of the most chilling films in cinematic history. Join us as we count down the top 10 most terrifying horror movies from old Hollywood in the 1960s. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep exploring the darkest corners of Hollywood with us. Psycho, 1960. Directed by Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho is a landmark horror thriller that tells the story of Marion Crane, who steals a large sum of money and ends up at the mysterious Bates Motel, where she meets the unsettling Norman Bates. The film is renowned for its shocking twists and psychological depth. Hitchcock's decision to film in black and white was both a budgetary choice and a stylistic one, adding to the film's eerie atmosphere. The infamous shower scene required over 70 camera setups and is one of the most iconic moments in horror cinema. Psycho revolutionized the horror genre, introducing a new level of psychological horror and suspense. It remains one of the most influential films ever made, with Norman Bates becoming one of cinema's most famous villains. Rosemary's Baby, 1968. Directed by Roman Polanski, Rosemary's Baby is a psychological horror film that follows Rosemary Woodhouse, a young woman who becomes increasingly paranoid that a cult is planning to use her unborn child for sinister purposes. The film is a masterclass in slow-building tension. Mia Farrow's dedication to the role included losing significant weight to portray Rosemary's physical and mental decline. The film's unsettling atmosphere was heightened by Polanski's meticulous direction and an eerie score by Krzysztof Komeda. Rosemary's Baby is a landmark in horror cinema, influencing countless films with its focus on psychological horror rather than explicit scares. Its themes of paranoia and the loss of control have made it a lasting classic in the genre. Night of the Living Dead, 1968. Directed by George A. Romero, Night of the Living Dead is a seminal horror film that follows a group of people trapped in a farmhouse as they fend off a horde of flesh-eating zombies. The film's stark, documentary-style presentation added to its visceral impact. Made on a shoestring budget, the film's gritty realism and use of unknown actors gave it a raw, unsettling quality. Romero's decision to cast African-American actor Dwayne Jones in the lead role was groundbreaking for the time and added a layer of social commentary. Night of the Living Dead is often credited with creating the modern zombie genre and has been endlessly imitated and referenced in popular culture. Its influence on horror and independent filmmaking is immeasurable. The Haunting, 1963. Directed by Robert Wise, The Haunting is a supernatural horror film based on Shirley Jackson's novel The Haunting of Hill House. The story revolves around a group of people who are invited to stay in a supposedly haunted mansion, where they experience increasingly disturbing phenomena. The film's use of sound, lighting, and camera angles creates an atmosphere of dread without relying on special effects or overt scares. Julie Harris's portrayal of the fragile Eleanor adds a psychological depth to the film's terror. The Haunting is considered one of the greatest haunted house films ever made, influencing countless horror films and television series with its subtle, psychological approach to fear. Carnival of Souls, 1962. Directed by Herc Harvey, Carnival of Souls is a low-budget independent horror film that follows a woman who, after surviving a car accident, is drawn to a mysterious, abandoned carnival. The film's eerie atmosphere and dreamlike narrative make it a cult classic. Filmed on a shoestring budget, the film's stark black and white cinematography and haunting organ score contribute to its otherworldly feel. The film's unsettling tone was achieved through creative use of locations and sound design. Carnival of Souls was largely overlooked upon its release but has since gained a cult following for its unique atmosphere and influence on psychological horror. It's now considered an essential part of horror film history. The Innocence, 1961. Directed by Jack Clayton, The Innocence is a gothic horror film based on Henry James's novella The Turn of the Screw. It tells the story of a governess who becomes convinced that the children in her care are being haunted by malevolent spirits. The film's unsettling atmosphere was created using innovative techniques such as deep focus cinematography and minimal special effects, relying on suggestion rather than explicit horror. Deborah Kerr's performance as the increasingly unhinged governess is a masterclass in subtlety and restraint. The Innocence is now revered as one of the best horror films of the 1960s, influencing subsequent psychological horror films with its eerie ambience and ambiguous narrative. Directed by Wolf Rilla, Village of the Damned is a sci-fi horror film based on John Wyndham's novel The Midwich Cuckoos. The film centers around a small English village where all the women mysteriously become pregnant, giving birth to eerily similar and malevolent children. The children's unnerving performances, coupled with the film's stark, clinical visual style, create a chilling atmosphere. The film's tension is amplified by its slow build and the underlying dread of what these children might represent. Village of the Damned has become a classic in both the horror and sci-fi genres, with its unsettling portrayal of otherworldly children influencing many subsequent films and stories about sinister offspring. The Birds, 1963. Directed by Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds is a suspenseful horror thriller that depicts a series of unexplained and increasingly violent bird attacks on the residents of a small coastal town. The film's premise of nature turning against humanity creates an atmosphere of relentless terror. The film's special effects, particularly the use of live birds, were groundbreaking for the time and contributed to its disturbing realism. Tippi Hedren's performance as the film's protagonist, Melanie Daniels, is central to the film's success. The Birds is another Hitchcock masterpiece that has left a lasting impact on the horror genre. Its influence can be seen in numerous films that explore the theme of nature striking back against humanity. Repulsion, 1965. Directed by Roman Polanski, Repulsion is a psychological horror film that follows a young woman, played by Catherine Deneuve, as she descends into madness while left alone in her apartment. The film explores themes of isolation, paranoia, and sexual repression. Polanski's use of claustrophobic spaces and surreal imagery effectively conveys the protagonist's deteriorating mental state. The film's disturbing and hallucinatory sequences were innovative for their time, pushing the boundaries of psychological horror. Repulsion is considered a pioneering work in the psychological horror genre, influencing films that explore the inner workings of disturbed minds. Deneuve's performance is one of the most memorable portrayals of mental unraveling in cinema history. Witchfinder General, 1968. Directed by Michael Reeves, Witchfinder General is a British horror film set during the English Civil War. It stars Vincent Price as the notorious witch hunter Matthew Hopkins, who exploits the chaos of the time to torture and execute innocent people accused of witchcraft. The film's brutal and uncompromising depiction of violence was shocking for its time, earning it a controversial reputation. Vincent Price's chilling performance as Hopkins is one of the highlights of his career, showcasing a more serious and sinister side than his usual campy horror roles. Witchfinder General is now considered a classic of British horror cinema, influencing later films that deal with themes of religious fanaticism and the abuse of power. Its stark portrayal of historical horrors resonates with audiences even today. The 1960s produced some of the most enduring and terrifying horror films in cinema history. These films pushed the boundaries of what was possible in horror, blending psychological depth with supernatural scares to create unforgettable experiences. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Hollywood Secrets for more explorations into the dark and twisted corners of old Hollywood. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.